Assalamu alaikum. We've got a capacity crowd and people still trying to come in. Inshallah, we'll find places for everybody. So our topic tonight is Akhlaq, morals, ethics, and how we can put it into practice in the real world. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So salamu alaikum again to our respected scholars and our elders and our youth and all the brothers and sisters here today. You know, we always need to give praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's brought us here. He's the one who's brought us here today so that we can affirm our beliefs, so we can empower ourselves and strengthen our Islamic identities, and to trust in our faith, and to avoid being led into conformity with those who do not follow the ways that Allah has commanded. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad has said, the most complete in faith among the believers is the one who has the best akhlaq, the best manners. And Imam Ali, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, has said, habituate yourself to magnanimity, fancy word in English, and choose for yourself the most excellent of all etiquettes. For virtuous behavior is a habit. Avoid the most low of all etiquettes and struggle with yourself to avoid it. For evil is stubborn. Now let me tell you about this translation. I have the translation here for you, but the word that's used, magnanimity, it comes from the Latin root magna animus, great-souled. Magna, great, animus, souled. I think even in the translation, the beauty of this hadith is very powerful. So to pursue akhlaq, best manners, to strive in this path means your soul is great. So these are the two guiding hadith for the lecture tonight. But let me begin by defining akhlaq. One of the things I love to do as a convert is to go to the root words and to find the meaning behind these concepts that we often hear in the masjid, in majlises, in programs. You may hear this word often, but to look at it more deeply is going to bring a lot more significance and meaning for you, as well as allow you to use it more realistically because you're going to have a better picture of what it means. So akhlaq comes from the root verb khalaqa, which obviously means to create. But besides that definition, it also has the notion of to measure and proportion. So khulq is the moral nature or the character, the disposition of the human being. So when we look at akhlaq, we need to look at it in context because it's not something that stands alone. In fact, I have a term for it. It fits into what I would call the three-dimensionality of religion. The 3D version of Islam. I think a lot of you get excited about that. 3D movies are very popular today. Now we have the Sony TV 3D. How many have it? Oh yeah, we're the guys. We're our techie people. Oh, they're not willing to admit it. 3D is very popular, right? To see something in all its dimensions. Yeah? Well, akhlaq is embedded in more than just its own idea. The Holy Prophet has said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, recorded in Al-Kafi, verily knowledge is of three types: the firm signs, aqaid, which are the beliefs and theology, moderate precepts, which is akhlaq or ethics, and established tradition, which is the ahkam, practical laws. And here the word knowledge in the Arabic is ilm, coming from alama, to mark, to distinguish. So these are the three dimensions that we're talking about. Akhlaq is embedded in aqaid and ahkam. And it doesn't stand alone. And this is your deen, a 3D deen. So it's important, especially as young people going out into the world, into college, into young professional lives, to really learn how to stand fully in your Islam and not to feel like you have to succumb. But how can you do that? First, you have to be clear what your Islamic identity actually is. And then you can work with these 3 dimensions and build strength and surety so that you keep your feet firmly on the path of Allah. So aqa'id is the foundation, the beginning and end points. Aqa'id's root is aqada, and it means to tie a knot. It means to make a compact, enter into an obligation. So when you as a Muslim take on these beliefs, you are taking on an agreement. You've just agreed to a compact. It's something that's binding. So this is your basis. And what, of course, is the aqa'id, the basics of beliefs? You've got tawheed, divine unity. You've got adala, the belief in the divine justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have nubuwah, imama, and qiyamah. And this is the foundational beliefs. But now I want to give you a picture that you can enter into when you think about your beliefs as a Muslim. Imagine for a moment that you're a warrior. Anybody getting excited about that? You're a warrior. Oh, Ali is getting excited about that. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. See, the youth, the youngest of the youth, they get excited about a picture like that. But you all are really warriors on this earth, on the path of Allah. Imagine yourself. You are the warrior. The aqa'id is the oath of allegiance that you as a warrior take. And you have sworn it, and you stand on it in order to do combat with your nafs. You are the warrior, and this is what you stand on. Now the next dimension, ahkam. These are your parameters and boundaries. The root of ahkam comes from hakama. It means to restrain from, to exercise authority, give judgment, be wise. Ahkam, these are the duties which are discharged according to Sharia, but do not necessarily require niyyah or qurba, okay? They are the 5 things that are wajib, mustahab, mubah, makruh, and haram. These are your parameters and boundaries. So now let's continue with that picture of yourself as a warrior. I know some of you are getting excited about that. I know some of you are imagining your outfit, your shield, yeah? Which sword you've got, okay? Picture yourself as this noble warrior. Ahkam are your weapons. And you must use them, and you must train yourself to know what to use, when to use it, and how to use it. And you also have to know what dark treachery you will not engage in that will distract you and deter you from your victory. Now, akhlaq. Again, it's your inner striving and it's your consciousness. And as a warrior, this is your inner discipline. Every warrior that's noble has major discipline and nobility of character. And that's what distinguishes them. The Prophet ﷺ and all of the Ahlul Bayt, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, they are the most distinguished examples of this nobility of character. And many of you, from all the majlises you've attended, have heard stories upon stories of the nobility of character. And they are our shining and true examples. But I also want to tell you about an image of a noble character that I just read about to my young daughter. For those of you who have read Little House on the Prairie, I'm going to look over in this direction. I'm seeing some nods. Oh, yeah, Ali too. MashaAllah. In this book, Laura Ingalls is on the prairie, and they've just made their homestead for the past year in, unbeknownst to them, what was still Indian territory. And there was a great Indian chief named Soldat Duchesne, and this is a real historical figure, who actually helped avert a massacre between the various tribes that wanted to take action against the white settlers. And for many days, Laura and her family heard the drums beating and the war cries, which were piercing. Many of you may have heard Native American chanting. It's already very high-pitched. and very loud, but then a war cry is something else, even more fierce. And this went on for days. Finally, they came to find out that this character, Soldat Duchenne, a tall Osage Indian, and Osages were known for their height, like our Abbas, alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the native tribe, the Osages, they made peace, and all the various tribes that had come dispersed. But this Soldat Duchenne led his tribe out from this area so to avoid a confrontation. And little Laura was observing him riding his pony. He was the first in the long, long line of native people who were leaving the area. And she remarked as a young child that the pony had no bridle. It didn't have a saddle. Yet it was carrying Soldat Duchenne as if it wanted to. He was sitting straight, noble. And the image of this pony that without coercion was leading forward this noble character, I think is an image you all can live with when you think about striving with your akhlaq. That you, because of your dignity, can lead this animal, for example, or lead others without coercion, without restraints. But because this nobility is so magnanimous, so beautiful, that it naturally compels and moves forward, subhanAllah. And that is an image I want to leave you with. In another book called Jami' al-Sadat by Muhammad Mahdi ibn Abidhar al-Naraki, he talks about the capacity of developing your akhlaq. He says it's changes in one's disposition. But he says we do not mean that one should destroy one's instincts for reproduction or self-preservation. He says humans can't live without these characteristics. But what we mean is that one should avoid going to either extremes in regard to them and maintain a condition of balance. If you were with me this morning, that was my theme, this balance. Night, day, firm, fluid. And here again, in developing the akhlaq, it's not about becoming a complete aesthetic who tries to get rid of every human passion, but it's about putting things in the right balance and being fully human. So he goes on to say that this is moderation, so that you can perform your functions properly. And he says, just as the seed of a date grows into a fruitful tree through proper care, or a wild horse is trained to serve his master, like in the example I just gave you, or a dog is trained to be a lifelong friend and help a human, so also can humans attain perfection and wisdom through self-discipline and intelligent perseverance. Now, in the field that I work in Waldorf education, Rudolf Steiner describes the highest human capacity as the human ego, but not in the way we use the word today as ego or egotistical, as in being arrogant, but the ego meaning the human capacity to be upright, to be thinking, to be dignified, to be the best example between heaven and earth. And so he says this highest human capacity, this ego, is an elevated, love-permeated thinking capacity that is not swayed by instinct or desire. And so he goes on to say, this is what tames the self. And truly, this upright, noble capacity in the human is what tames the animals, the plant world, and the earth as well. And let me give you an example of what that means. How many of you have ever seen a business that, for example, has closed down and they've boarded it up, and just a week later, you look at it and it looks like it's been abandoned for years? Have any of you ever noticed that? Yeah, I've noticed that. Do you know why it has that feeling of being abandoned forever, even though it may have been closed down a week ago? Because that upright human being consciousness is no longer permeating that space. So this is a noble quality of the human being that is necessary in all areas of life. And if any of you have ever watched an episode of The Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan? Anybody? Okay, one volunteer. Cesar Millan talks extensively about the importance of the character of the owner, and that's what transforms the ability of this pet, yeah? It's the owners who need to learn how to become upright human beings. And when they come in calm, assertive, that upright human being, they're able to manage this pet. And I think this is true for us too. When you come with that intention, that upright, noble intention, you can master your own nafs, inshallah. So let's look at what this means. Akhlaq is the development of working with your intellect to balance your desire. And it's about the purification of the nafs. So from ilm al-akhlaq, the science of ethics, the goal is to raise and guide humans from the lowest animal state to the exalted position superior of that to angels. And in a way, when you hear this next hadith, think again about the themes I brought this morning of polarities, balance, and the threefold nature. Because what's a polarity? It's one-sidedness versus another extreme. And this balance in the middle is what a healthy human being is striving for. This is a hadith from Imam Ali, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He's related as saying, surely God has characterized the angels by intellect without desire and anger, and the animals with anger and desire without reason. He exalted humans by bestowing upon them all of these qualities. Accordingly, if one's reason dominates one's desire and ferocity, one rises to a station above that of the angels, because this station is attained by humans in spite of the existence of hurdles which do not vex the angels. Another interesting word, vex, comes from Latin vexare, to shake, jolt, harass, annoy. The angels are not vexed by the hurdles that we have as humans. So now let's talk about akhlaq in action, because really you need to be able to leave by thinking of a plan. How do I use this? It sounds really great. Now how do I do this? First of all, my first advice is have a plan. And the number one part of this plan is get comfortable with being different. When I see the youth, when I see teenagers, when I see young adults, I see that they take on the characteristics of those people around them, their manners of talking, their dress, the interests that they have, because it's natural for humans to want to be social and to fit in. It feels very difficult to put yourself out of the social circle. It feels alienating, it feels vulnerable, and fear dominates. But you as a Muslim have the capacity to rise above normal psychological reactions. Just like the example of the Ahlul Bayt. And what is our best example is Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who in the battlefield, despite the most daunting circumstances, rose above the normal inclination. Most people don't go towards death. Most people go away. Most people don't go towards challenges or difficulties or hardships, or even in this case, the most ferocious physical environment. But they went towards it, without the normal psychological reactions that most people would have. And in psychology would say PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or they would have anxiety disorder, or they'd have some other reaction. But as Muslims, we have this example of rising above. So your plan is to become comfortable. You don't need approval from peers. You need to elevate your consciousness and your interest, because you are developing the capacity to fly higher. Fly higher. Seek the beacon of light that is Allah's signal calling you to His shore. He's your lighthouse. You are above the foolishness of this dunya. You need to keep striving for that every day. Now the next plan of action. So you've got your plan. You've got the notion of rising above normal psychological reactions. Your next tool is visualize. Actually, literally visualize yourself moving above the pain and pleasure principle and seeking instead Allah's support and guidance. Number 3, here's your next tool. You've got to be your own coach. You have to pep talk yourself on a daily basis. That is, you have to give yourself positive talk to get through the challenges you face, to get comfortable with being different, to be comfortable expressing your views. If you were to hear earlier and you heard Sayyid Ammar's response to the issues of shaking hands and how challenging that is for a lot of people, you've got to learn how to be comfortable saying who you are and standing firmly in that. And he said, it's true. People will understand. We're in a society where they let everything be the norm here. So it's certainly possible for you to express who you are and set the tone. And most people, because of their fitrah, they will appreciate that. They will understand that. In fact, it might waken something up in them. You become the leader. Now, here's the other tool that you need to have and need to understand. Desire and intellect don't always match. What one knows is right and what one desires, it can often be at odds. In fact, most of the time. So knowledge actually is something that desire and intellect like. Everybody likes knowledge. Nobody would disagree with that. Ignorance is rejected by both desire and intellect. But desire rejects patience, but accepts longing for temptation. But the mind or intellect accepts sabr and halal. So you have to get on board out of the desire that may be burning somewhere in here and get up into the head, and this is where you start your pep talk. I know this is better, I know this is right, and I'm going to move in this direction. And you have to do it. Now, I just told you have to be your best own coach, right? So that's part of your plan, but you have to have a support team. You got to have a good support team. Somebody who can talk to you, somebody who can remind you about Allah, and somebody who will be there at every stage, who will nurture you when you need nurturing, and somebody will give you a good smack when you need it. And I don't mean a physical smack, but a good talking to. And if you get that good talking to from some of your good, loyal, trustworthy friends, you know it's gonna burn. But I'm gonna talk to you about burning now. Because everybody wants to stay away from the burn. But I'll tell you, a burn is good. And here's why. You know, when a field is burned on purpose in what's called a controlled burn, or what we call slash and burn agriculture, what happens? The ground is charred, new life emerges. It actually increases biodiversity. In fact, there are some trees that can't pollinate or germinate without that heat. Some conifers. So that heat, that burn, makes way for new and fresh. Okay, ladies, if you go get a chemical peel, get nice treatment on your skin, it burns, right? It's gonna hurt. Guys, I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about. None of you go for treatments. Anyway, it burns, but what happens next? New growth, health. Yeah? Burning is good. You know, in alchemy, which is a mystical science, fire is a catalyst for initiating and transforming and being lifted out of temptation. And if we look at the Holy Quran in Surah Qasas, we hear that Musa, and I'm going to read the translation. Now, when Musa had fulfilled the term and was traveling with his family, he perceived a fire in the direction of Mount Tur. He said to his family, "Tarry ye, I perceive a fire, and I hope to bring you from there some information, or a burning firebrand that ye may warm yourselves." You know, here again we have the idea that the fire, it wasn't a destructive thing. What did Musa do? Did he go away from the fire? No, he went towards the fire. So when you are striving with your nafs and you are feeling the pain of the difficulty you're going through, stand in that feeling, stand in that burn, and embrace it, and let it cleanse you, and let it help you grow spiritually. Because it's going to burn away falsehood, it's going to burn away low desires and base instincts, and you're going to reach high peaks of spiritual enlightenment. Now let's end, because I have a few minutes in case I get kicked off the stage. But let's end by talking about the practical things that you as young people need to be very conscious of, and it's true of adults as well, because we don't get off the hook that easily. Let's talk about, though, the main areas that you need to be thinking about reforming your nafs with. And you make the plan of how you're going to manage this. And remember, you're not going to be popular from working on these issues, so that's not the goal. But believe me, Allah is by your side. The Ahlul Bayt are ready to embrace you. They are there for you. Strive in the path of Allah and ask from them, plead from them, ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because none other than Him can provide for you. So thinking about these critical issues, gossip, You know, it's easy to talk about other things. And it's also easy to pretend that you're trying to help someone and chit-chat about something when in fact you're being destructive. Avoid it, walk away, strive against this. This is a sin, this is a difficulty at every level, not just for the young people. So when you're in school and you're in the cafeteria or you're sitting between classes and somebody starts chit-chatting about this and that, and you know in your heart, this is it, I can't take this. You don't have to chastise anybody else, but reform yourself. Say, you know, I have to go right now. Oh, I forgot. Distraction is also an excellent technique. Change the subject. You change the subject, you redirect the conversation, and you get it going down a healthier path. Take action and work on this issue. Gender relations, obviously, is another big one. And it's challenging because when you look around yourself on the college campuses and high school, it's easy to fall into the trap of being comfortable or too comfortable with others, being loud, being flirtatious, gazing in the eyes of others. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. So work on being careful with this. Work on trying to avoid situations that put you in difficulty. Keep your distance and try to be an example that the Ahlul Bayt would be proud of. And again, think about online etiquette too. You know, this is a problem for many people, regardless of whether they're Muslim or not. But online, people can say all kinds of things and they don't recognize the impact of it. And it's anonymous. It's very easy to say. In fact, most people say more in an email than they really should. So be very cautious with this. Be very cautious with it. In fact, avoid it. Avoid too much communication in an anonymous way. Try to be real, have real relationships, but keep it healthy, keep it clean. And finally, just think about who you are and how you represent yourself in public. Think about what you represent, because especially for Muslims, we are observed keenly by others, and we need to be thoughtful and careful about what impression we make. Now, we're not going to be perfect, and I'm not asking any of you to be perfect, because I certainly am not. Believe me, when I speak to you about all of this, this is what I'm working on too. This is what I'm thinking about too. This is what I'm striving for. And believe me, it's the striving that you try to take on every day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with. And it's that striving that will help you reach your goal and help you reach that positive destination. And inshallah, I hope that everything we've talked about tonight so far can be real for you, be warriors, remember your 3-dimensionality of your deen, and inshallah, your new days coming ahead of you will be even better than before, inshallah. Salawat.